Canada's federal deficit just exploded to $78 billion. And in these uncertain times, Ottawa is doubling down on investments. But how will this budget impact Quebec? I've identified 6 major moves that could shape Quebec's economy and how the political scene is already reacting. I'm Farouk Karim, a politico who has worked in Quebec City and on Parliament Hill, both for the Parti Québécois and later the NDP. This is Distinct, Quebec Politics with an accent. The government has tabled its federal budget at a time where Canada finds itself in the middle of a high-stakes negotiation with the Trump administration, a moment that feels almost existential to the country's economic direction. Here's how the Finance Minister, François-Philippe Champagne, characterizes his budget.
The budget I present today comes at a time of profound change, a time to build. The world is undergoing a series of fundamental shifts at a speed, scale, and scope not seen since the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Facing slower growth, the government is choosing to spend its way through uncertainty. The government is betting that key investments now will strengthen the long-term position of the country. It's a plan built on national defense, boosting business productivity, housing construction, and infrastructure funding, both through transfer to the provinces and through large-scale national projects. It's a budget that mixes short-term pressures and long-term ambition, and already it has been stirring the debate across the political spectrum. Here are 6 measures that could both shape Quebec's economy and its political conversation. First, the investment in national defense could mean new opportunities for Quebec aerospace and aluminum sectors, 2 key strategic sectors that translate directly into jobs and export capacities. Second, the push for productivity and business innovation targets Quebec's chronic weaknesses. The boost for innovation and the push to modernize companies and raise output will be a benefit for Quebec's economy. Third, the planned reduction in immigration level, unusual to see in the federal budget, echoes Quebec's long-time ask to reduce pressure on housing and social services. It's politically resonant here, though risky economically as businesses already worry about stagnant growth. Fourth, infrastructure spending still far short of the province expectation. Quebec and the provinces ask for $100 billion nationally. The budget delivers only 50, $17 billion to the provinces only if they match their funds. Useful, but not enough. All parties in Quebec, from the Liberals to the CAQ, continue to demand more autonomy in the selection of projects. Fifth, investments in culture remain a political safeguard. Ottawa is extending funding to Telefilm Canada and CBC Radio-Canada. $150 million for the public broadcaster, $50 million a year for the film industry, and $73 million for festival and performing arts. For Quebec, it's not just a cultural policy, it's also political memory. Remember in 2008, Harper's Conservative cut $45 million in culture and it cost them seats in Quebec. Since then, every federal government knows cutting culture in Quebec is political suicide. And 6, the retreat from stronger climate policy has huge impacts in Quebec. While carbon pricing still exists in the province and green investment still has broad public support, Ottawa's shift in focus towards defense and productivity may weaken Canada's climate credibility. In Quebec, where clean energy and environmental leadership are part of national identity, that choice matters. It risks reigniting the debate over who should lead the green transition, Ottawa or Quebec. Quebec Finance Minister Éric Girard called the budget insufficient to meet Quebec's infrastructure needs, saying Ottawa is keeping too much room to maneuver despite major economic uncertainty. Still, Girard acknowledged that Mark Carney's Liberals chose the same economic orientations as Quebec, namely spending more on investment, lowering operational costs, and a modest tax reduction. Here's what Liberal leader Pablo Rodriguez had to say.
Non, je ne le qualifierais pas ni bon ni mauvais. Moi, je le regarde à travers les opportunités du Québec. Pour le Québec, j'en vois trois clairement au niveau des investissements en défense, au niveau des infrastructures et au niveau des minéraux critiques. Je pense aussi que la question de l'amortissement accéléré peut venir aider nos PME. Nous, j'ai adopté la même position pendant la course au leadership. Il faut aider nos PME, ça c'est absolument essentiel. Mais Ottawa doit comprendre que les priorités, c'est nous qui les fixons.
Clearly, the Liberal leader did not want to offend his former colleagues. For the Parti Québécois leader, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, this budget is a gift of a different kind. Here's what the sovereigntist leader had to say.
Ça me semble urgent. On a déjà dit dans le passé qu'on n'avait pas les moyens d'être un pays. Moi, je vous dis ce matin, on n'a pas les moyens de rester dans le Canada. Parce que cette histoire-là est un cauchemar sur le plan financier et ça a un impact important.
It's a familiar dynamic in Quebec politics. Federal budgets don't just allocate money. They set the tone for the next political chapter. And in an election year, every party is already sharpening its message. Finally, the federal sovereigntist party, the Bloc Québécois, will vote a clear no to the budget. Here's its leader, Yves-François Blanchet, characterizing the budget.
This is a red conservative budget, which Mr. Harper might have signed. And there's nothing for Quebecers in there. Absolutely nothing. We did ask what was basically the object of a large consensus within the population of Quebec. And the answer from a Quebecer, Mr. Champagne, is a blunt no.
Over the next year, Quebec heads into an election, and for the first time in a long time, Canada will be on trial. Every 4 years during the Quebec election, the Canadian government becomes some kind of a political piñata, a tradition as old as turkey at Christmas. This year, the turkey will be on steroids. In Quebec politics, federal budgets are never just about numbers. They're about identity, leverage, and distance from Ottawa. The impact of this budget and whether it truly helps Quebec's economy will shape that debate. Sovereignists will be critical, and even federalist parties must show independence from Ottawa without fueling the Parti Québécois. Meanwhile, Canada is in full nation-building mode, investing in defense, productivity, and housing, and even using the word sovereignty to describe its own strategy. That's no coincidence. Ottawa is reclaiming a word long tied to Quebec nationalism and reframing it as a federal mission. The Battle of Quebec has begun, a struggle to define how we protect our interests, identity in a fast-changing world. And that's the story we'll keep following week after week. Thank you for watching. This is Distinct Quebec Politics with an accent. If you're still here, hit the like button, subscribe, and share with a friend who you think would find this useful. But more than anything, just leave me a comment. Join the conversation. I'm Farouk Karim. À la semaine prochaine.